Welcome to the Movement PT Coffee Cast, where we sit down and talk about physical therapy, health, and whatever else comes to mind during our coffee-infused conversations.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a very special edition of the Movement PT Coffee Cast. I'm going to be taking the lead as host today, Zak Gabor. We're here in Stoneham, Massachusetts, and we're flipping the script, and Dalton is actually going to be sort of the guest on this episode.
Yes, what's going on, guys? We're down one bearded friend. Will is not here with us, but that's okay. He's here with us in spirit. We're excited for this episode that we got going on. So Zak's going to take the lead. We'll probably talk a little bit about networking, building our brands on Instagram, and just kind of having a little chat for you guys to listen in on.
So basically what we wanted to do is Dalton's crashing here for the week. We're doing the intense week-long mentorship hangout experience where he's going to be staying with Steph and I and coming to Boston PT and Wellness, and we're really excited to have him. But, you know, this week's also going to be filled with kind of just a lot of brain picking and learning some personal development and things that have worked in terms of building the brand. So we wanted to share some stuff with you. Dalton and I were having a great conversation in the car that we felt would be really valuable for the listeners for this podcast. So basically what we were talking about is this theme of looking at patterns of what really helped Dalton and Will grow their own brand through the Movement PTs and what helped me to build my brand. And we wanted to sort of have a candid discussion with you guys, like 15, 20 minutes about some big takeaways about what's worked, what hasn't worked. And we'll go from there and just keep it casual and fun.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it started off, I think the most important thing we found when we started, and I know you talked about this, was just making sure you know your why and set like values for yourself. I think that's something that it took me and Will a little bit to figure out when we originally started. Actually, this is funny. We haven't really told this before, but we came up with the idea of being ProAct therapy instead of the Movement PTs.
Being what?
ProAct.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of our thing, and our motto was going to be to proact instead of react. So it was a little bit, but yeah, so we kind of started off with that. That's what we wanted to do. And then we realized, we didn't really have a solid idea of what we wanted. So we scrapped that idea and took some time to really figure out like our values and what we believed in and kind of an authentic message we wanted to get across to people. So I think taking that extra time to really figure that out was probably the most important thing, because I know we talked about it a little bit. You're going to hit some hard times where you're going to need to be pretty strong in your why and what you're doing. And if you don't have that, it's really easy to give up and quit.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, and Dalton and I were talking about this earlier, is just it comes back to this notion of authenticity. It comes back to this notion of why are you really getting into the quote-unquote branding and creating, marketing for yourself and getting yourself out there. Why are you getting into it in the first place? I think we see a lot of people, and, I'm a little bit of a cynical bastard, but, see a lot of people where I don't necessarily get a super authentic vibe. And I think the number one key to building success and longevity is you have to establish trust first. And I think it's great that there's been a huge marketing surge and in that Con Ed realm. And I think the biggest mistake I see is that people are coming out and they're focusing first on, I have a sick brand, I have a sick marketing scheme, I'm posting 3 times a day, why the hell am I not getting a followership? Yeah. And I think that it blunts that authenticity, and I think it makes it hard to trust those people because, Steph and I talking about it a lot, but it's like, you have to focus on building a network and not a platform. Yes. So the one thing that you guys did really well is like you freaking reached out and we had a really authentic conversation. You started a podcast where you're literally just having conversations, and podcasting is great because it's just networking, but it gets people that maybe wouldn't have had conversations to have conversations with you. And then they sense your authenticity. And then you look back in a year and you have 10K followers because you've created something that is very tangibly authentic. So I think that is like my one biggest piece of advice is focus on building a network and not a platform, because when you can build relationships of people that trust you, they're going to support you. But if you're just kind of putting yourself out there and you're not really networking, or you're inauthentically networking,
you're just looking for followers, or you're just looking for more. You're looking for more attention without really having a true reason why you're finding it.
Dude, and you can tell when people are like reaching out because they feel like they have to reach out, as opposed to like genuinely just being fucking interested in learning more about your story.
Yeah. I think we should talk a little bit about that, because I think what people need to know, like, we can use our example for how we started connecting with you, but like the way you reach out to someone is literally just reaching out and just adding value to them in whatever way you can, like, or just being like, yo, I really dig your stuff, like your shit's great, I learned a lot from you. Like, that's kind of what I did with you, and then it just kind of went from there, right? So like, one thing that I've noticed people have kind of done to us, and it pisses me off and annoys me, is when they'll reach out to you and be like, hey man, like I like your stuff, like can you share our posts? Can you share this? And like the second I see that, I kind of get pissed, because one, it's like me and Will work really hard to build true, authentic relationships with people. Yeah. And like it takes time to like get to develop the relationship with someone, whereas these people are just like, yeah, can you just like share our posts?
That's gonna be a no for me, dog.
Yeah, exactly. So like just right off the cuff, I don't even really respond to that, because it's like, man, that's not what it's about, and two, like, that's for sure not how you do it, like, at all. So
yeah, no, that's a great point. And it's like, dude, networking 101 is reach out not looking to get anything in return. And you hear it all the time, but it's like, you need to be more interested in the person than being interested in yourself and trying to see how you can get ahead, because that's not how it works. So you need to figure out how to like come across authentically, and be like, literally, like the way Dalton reached out to me, he was like, I saw him commenting on an IG live I was doing once, and that he was engaged. And then he sent me a Facebook message like later that week that was just like, hey man, I know you don't really know who I am, but I just wanted to say I really appreciate everything that you're doing and the work that you put out. Like, it's super inspiring for people like me. And that was it. He didn't ask for shit. He literally just put out a message that was like, thank you. And now I'm like, oh damn, like the way human psychology works is like, I feel, well, like my wall is down, because he just came at me from a place of just like being like, thank you, and expressing gratitude and not mentioning a thing about himself. And from there, I'm like, yo, like, what can I do to help you? Like, right. I want to help you since you didn't ask me for help. But if you like come to me first and it's like, hey, can you repost my shit? I'm going to be like, I don't even know you. Yeah. So like, you have to establish trust, and you do that through literally just reaching out and expressing gratitude for people that you admire. So I think that people get caught up in like the big flashy branding, like the accounts with lots of followers, and like you reach out and see how you can get ahead, but that's not how it works. You really just gotta reach out and be like, hey, if you really actually truly fuck with them, put out a message that just expresses exactly that, and leave it at that. It doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Yeah, giving without expectation, I think, is huge, because whatever me and Will did, like whatever person we reached out to, we always, like for our podcast, for example, like we would send messages to people that, you know, we wished we could just talk to, and like with no expectation. And if we'd be like, hey, you want to come on the podcast and talk? If you can't, no big deal. Like, it's not going to affect us in any way. If you come on, great. That's awesome. And like, if you take that approach, it generally works out, and it's worked out for us. Like, there's very few people who have said, no, I don't want to help you out, or I don't want to come on your podcast. And like, that's how you get people that you don't ever expect. Like, we had Adam Meekins on our podcast. Like, when we reached out to him, it's like, that was totally just like, hey, same kind of thing. Like, obviously we've been following him for a while. If you want to come on and talk to us, we're just a couple students that drink coffee and talk. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And it's, you know, that's just kind of how it goes. And if you take that approach, I guarantee you'll see success. At least we have, in terms of like what we've done. I know you've had the same experience too with what you've gone through.
Dude, yeah. I mean, my marketing sucks. Like, if you were to dissect Simple Strength Physio, I did air quotes, like my brand, like, it's really not much of a brand. It's essentially just an extension of me and my core values. But I've never used paid ads. I've never used fancy marketing schemes. And it's not to be like, oh man, look at how good I am, I'm not using that. But it's more so to say that I think that marketing schemes and advertisements and all that stuff has a time and place. But when people come off the bat with that stuff, there's something that like people just put up a wall, and there's something terribly inauthentic about it. And a quote that I got from a book I just read, which I loved on marketing, Perennial Seller, talks about how like you can use advertising and marketing as like fuel to a fire, but it can't start a fire. So you start the fire by literally just being a fucking human and focusing on building meaningful relationships. But, you know, since day one of, you know, me creating my brand, like it really started when I was in PT school and just reaching out to people. Yeah. And like what I'm able to do now is based off of 3 years worth of just being on the phone and building up meaningful fucking relationships with people that I genuinely respect. And so for those of you out there listening, this shit doesn't happen overnight. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, Dalton and Will are a good example of, I think a year is a good time frame of like, you can expect to see really good growth in a year if you're doing it the right way, but it's a year. It's not overnight. And
you have to commit to it too. Like we committed to, like, we set out goals, right? Like we're like, let's post one post a day for a year. Like that's our goal. Like we're coming up on 1 year in October 1st, and we still holding true to that one post every day for a year. But like, that's what that consistent, if that's what you want to do, if your goal is to put content out there and build something and build a platform to help people and teach people, like, and you want to get attention and try to make a wave or a change, then you have to be consistent. And and I know we talked about this, so we can kind of get into it a little bit, but that wave of emotion that you ride, there's times where you're super fired up and you're like, let's go, you're hammering things out, you're getting on calls with people. And then there's times where you're like in the dark place where you're like, why am I doing this? I don't have time. I'm in school. I have no money. I'm in debt. I got to pass these exams. Like, you know, there's so much stuff going on where you're like, yeah, I don't even know why I'm doing it anymore. And you get stuck at times. And if you're not committed or invested in your why, then it's very easy to just be like, I'm going to tap out, you know? Yeah,
it's it always comes back to your intention, because if you're not truly like psychotic about driving change or what your true emotional intention is, it's going to be so easy to burn out so fast, because it is super daunting. And, you know, running a social media account is one thing, but all the things that go along with it, you know, Dalton and I were talking about, you know, my experience this past spring when I was in the midst of launching Level Up. I was in the midst of creating a 6-week course for a DPT curriculum. I was in the midst of working 40 plus hours a week clinically and trying to run social media account. And there was days where I literally wanted to fucking cry and go into my bed and just be like, why the fuck did I do this to myself? But then you remind yourself of that is totally normal to have highs and lows, and you can embrace them and validate that, but it always comes back to your why. And I think that it just takes a little, like, I was feeling bummed this past week, and all I did was I put out I was like, you know what, I'm feeling shitty, but I have this great message from a student about his experience with Mills. And I put it out onto my story, and the amount of feedback that I got just automatically lifted my mood, and it just reminds you of why you're doing it. And it's absolute great fuel for your intrinsic drive for like staying. You have to be kind of relentless. You have to really be invested for the long term and really demonstrate like emotional endurance, because shit can get tough sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And that comes back to like surrounding yourself with people that are going to be there for you. I know you have like a select few mentors that you bounce ideas off or are there to pick you up, and like same with me and Will. And that's part of it, man. Like, I think we've come to realize that if you want to make a change, and I know you've realized this, is like you can't do it alone. No, like, man. You need a wave of people that are willing to be just as passionate or just as committed to it as you are. And when you start bringing that network together, and that's why it comes back to networking, right? Like, you can bring it full circle. Like, if you don't build those relationships with people, like if I didn't build a relationship with you instead of just reaching out to you and like asking you to share my posts, like the things that we've been able to accomplish on our page and some of the things we've been able to like give you feedback on would have never happened.
Dude, and I think a good point to wrap up on now is this notion of when you build a network, one of the best ways to grow your platform is through that, but it's the collaboration. Yeah. collaboration does a couple of things. One thing is obviously it gives you exposure into another audience. But for me, when I see people collaborating, it displays to me more willingness to trust them. Because when I can see that they work with others, now all of a sudden I feel differently about them and I trust them more. And again, like I think it comes back to this notion of to build a successful brand, you need to get people to trust you. And that's why networking is such a fucking valuable tool, because it exudes trust, because you're like, I work well with others. I have humility in building relationships and bouncing ideas off of people. And there's something authentic about that. So like when I see you guys collaborating with other people on posts, like that's one of the biggest ways that I grew my platform was through authentic relationships and then collaborating with people like Teddy or Joe Gambino, or, you know, you build that collaboration and it gets you exposure to other audiences, which is huge. But it gives people more of a reason to trust you. And I think that is like, if you don't take anything else away from this quick little tidbit, is you need to focus on really being open and honest and authentic with yourself. Because once you are, you're going to have a better ability to build meaningful relationships. And as a byproduct, get people to trust you. You can't go in with the primary intention of, how can I dubiously get Dalton to trust me? Yeah. It comes as a byproduct from when you can have an authentic self and be honest with yourself. You're gonna be more open with other people, and they're gonna feel that emotional energy, and you're gonna build a meaningful relationship. And as a byproduct, get that trust buy-in, and then it's like boom, fucking therapeutic alliance city, and now a bunch of good shit happens. Yeah. And one might say that you kind of like level up once that happens. You know what I mean?
One would say that. Beautiful. Yeah, guys, so just to wrap it up, the few key points. Know your why, give without expectation.
Yep.
And build a network of trusted people.
And in turn, that gets people to trust you. And bada bing, bada boom. You're on your way to developing a platform built in longevity and not a flash in a pan. Because I think that's the difference. If you want to build something that lasts, I think those are some of the really key things to focus on. If you want to be a flash in a pan, you can go and do some fear-mongering nocebo marketing and some advertisements, and you can get a quick following, but shit ain't gonna last because that's gonna fizzle out real quick. So we hope that this was helpful for you. Thank you for joining us on this special edition. Definitely leave some feedback about how you think I did as a host, so maybe they can consider me getting some part-time side gig.
Yeah, for sure.
But you guys know where to find both of us. But thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us, because you know that we're more than willing to help. So with that being said, let's fucking get it.
Peace.